In the world of feature animation, there are very few studios that compare to Disney. They set the bar high in the late 1930s with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and continued to produce the same level of quality for years to come. Even on their bad days, they still stood above the competition, and were at the forefront of American animated features for over half a century. Yes, they had their rivals, and they would sometimes lose to them in the box office. But in 2001, Disney finally came face to face with a true contender, one that would bring a new perspective to animated movies.
Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me.
DreamWorks, the silver medal of the feature-length animated world. The kid in class who gets C's and D's on his report card, but occasionally gets an A-, or maybe a B?
I'm helping him sue the human race.
What?
I know I'm giving them a hard time, but it's hard not to when one looks at the hot mess that is this company. It obviously has talent and has created amazing movies before, but it seems to be a one step forward, two steps back policy for DreamWorks, where a viewer isn't quite certain what they are going to see in one of their movies. It could be funny, sincere, beautiful, or it can be about Will Smith working at the car wash as a fish. It's a crapshoot when it comes to DreamWorks, and it's incredibly frustrating to witness the potential of these artists and watch it go to waste. When DreamWorks first arrived on the scene, they found momentum, but never really went anywhere with it. Instead, they went in circles. What happened? Why does this company struggle so much? How come they never found their identity? Pixar, for example, is known for its brand of movies and typically delivers, but for DreamWorks, no one is quite certain what to expect, and I believe that the studio feels the same way. So let's take a closer look at what's ruining DreamWorks. Before we start the video, I want to give a shout out to the Pixel Empire. They sponsored this upload and will be helping me afford rent this month. Also, I will be working with them later this year to roll out some Saberspark merchandise. Imagine my beautiful face on a t-shirt. This is a great website to buy posters, shirts, and phone cases. They collaborate with other artists and YouTubers to provide some awesome designs. I'm a huge fan of their minimalistic stuff and have some of their Game of Thrones posters in my room. They even come in bundles, which can save you some cash. You can save even more with my discount code Saberspark and get 15% off your purchase. We are also giving away 3 $50 gift cards. So check out the link down below for details, and stay tuned for future merch giveaways on my channel. All right, back to DreamWorks.
Donkey.
Most of my videos begin with a history of the topic, and that will be the case here. But out of all of the subjects I have talked about, none of them are more dramatic and outrageous than the origins of DreamWorks. I mean, we are talking about a story that includes lies, betrayal, and even death. Hollywood giants going at each other's throats as they fight over the destinies of multi-billion-dollar companies. It's bizarre, it's petty, and it's confusing. Seriously, there's so much information here. Those are just some of the sources for this video, so I'm going to try and summarize the facts so we can keep things moving along. Let's begin with the most important key player, Jeffrey Katzenberg. Back in the 1970s and early 80s, Disney was struggling to get by. But in 1984, things were starting to change. Michael Eisner became CEO of the company and began to turn things around. One of his decisions was to bring Katzenberg on as the head of the motion picture division. He was also tasked with fixing the feature animation department too. He had his work cut out for him, but things started to rapidly improve. The first big hit to come from the revitalized studio was The Little Mermaid. This officially launched the Disney Renaissance and led to a decade of both financial and critical success for the studio and company. These movies became the flagship for merchandise, park attractions, and basically everything else. Katzenberg had done a good job and was becoming one of the most powerful individuals in Hollywood. Many people praised him for Disney's success, but some of his peers did not feel the same way. There were a few notable people who disliked Katzenberg, and that included Roy E. Disney. He thought Katzenberg was positioning himself to further his career and only cared about his agenda, that he was in it for his own reasons and ego.
We heard one day that Jeffrey was going to come in with a reporter from the Wall Street Journal and they was going to follow us around to show how the movie got made. And Jeffrey performed for the journalist, and we created what looked like a slice of how the movie actually got made. And in that article, Jeffrey was proclaimed the guy who was saving Disney animation.
I think that was kind of a last straw kind of a thing for me. I was just incensed by that.
Then there was Frank Wells, the number 2 at Disney who served as president of the company. According to many reports and accounts, Frank was the peacemaker when it came to the higher-ups within Disney. These executives would butt heads and go at each other, but Frank would diffuse the situation.
Frank, of all of us, was the most selfless, and so he was able to navigate a course between strong and growing personalities and egos. And I always found Frank the peacemaker, that he was like a marriage counselor.
Katzenberg was pressuring Michael Eisner to promote him to president of the company, but then tragedy struck. In 1994, Frank Wells died in a helicopter crash. It was terribly sad for family and friends, but also for the company. This man who served as the negotiator was now gone, and he also left a desired position of power, a spot that would be fought over fiercely. Katzenberg gunned for the position, but was denied by Roy and Eisner. For some reason, they really did not want him to be president. Was it pride? Respect? Ego stroking? Who's to say? But this royally ticked off Katzenberg. After The Lion King was released, he resigned and left the company. He also sued Disney for contractual reasons and settled out of court for $250 million. It's amazing how all of these events are intertwined and set things in motion. After Lion King, Disney's animation would start to fade and wouldn't return in force until 2010. Pixar was about to show the world their stuff and wow audiences with Toy Story. And later in 1994, Katzenberg would return to the scene with his own upstart studio. It's quite remarkable how quickly DreamWorks came together. It was a massive undertaking that required almost $3 billion in upstart money. Also, starting a studio of this size and caliber had not been attempted for many decades. It was a massive risk, but it had some solid names attached to it. First, there was Katzenberg, the former Disney powerhouse, who had quite the remarkable track record and experience. Then there was Geffen, a billionaire king of the music industry. And then there was the god of Hollywood himself, Steven Spielberg. Attaching his name added prestige to the company and made it more enticing for prospective investors and creators. I mean, why wouldn't you want to work with one of the most successful directors in the history of entertainment, right? Now, there is a lot more to this story, and it gets a little messy, but I feel that we have gone far enough. I will most likely make a dedicated history video for DreamWorks in the future, but to summarize it, Katzenberg worked for Disney, got screwed by Disney, left Disney, started DreamWorks, stole animators from Disney to work for him, and gave Disney the middle finger. For the first real time, Disney was up against a company who could throw down feature animations consistently, and that was going to rock the boat. Now, it should be said that DreamWorks was not strictly an animation studio, but that will be the part we focus on. Who cares about their video game division, right?
Save far, far away in Shrek the Third, the game.
Katzenberg might have left Disney, but he was not done taking shots at them, and vice versa. This bitter rivalry between people would become a rivalry between companies. And one movie that really stirred up the drama was Ants. Ants was the first animated film by DreamWorks and was released on October 2nd, 1998, the month before Bug's Life was released. Oh man, did this make some waves. First off, John Lasseter, the guy who was in charge at Pixar and was working for Disney, felt utterly betrayed. He told Katzenberg the plot and release date for Bug's Life in confidence, and Katzenberg double-crossed him. Ants was supposed to be released in spring of '98, but they moved it to October to screw over Bug's Life. But according to Katzenberg, he did this because Disney was releasing Bug's Life to screw over the release date of The Prince of Egypt, another DreamWorks film. Steve Jobs, who worked with Pixar at the time, called Katzenberg and was like, "What the hell, dude?" To which Katzenberg said, "Tell Disney to change the release date on Bug's Life so it doesn't hurt Prince of Egypt." To which Steve said, "No way, dude, deal with it." Neither Katzenberg nor Jobs stood down, and Ants was released right before Bug's Life. Both films did well, but Bug's Life was the clear financial victor. But what about plot? What about the characters? Which one was the better movie? Bug's Life?
How low can you go? Sing it now. How low can you go? Do it, princess. How low can you go?
Ants.
Ouch. Ouch.
Bug's Life?
Oh no.
I'm lost!
Ants.
It's beautiful.
Which way? Get out of there!
Bug's Life?
Bubba all gone. Baby wants pie.
Pie? He asked for it. Should I give it to him? Yeah! Get pie! Get pie! Yeah!
Ants.
Take deep breaths, because I'm gonna try and find your body. It's bound to be out there somewhere.
They're definitely different, that's for sure. Bug's Life was more of a family movie, great for kids and their parents. It was simple but fun, and was super creative with the perspective of insects. Ants was a lot darker. I mean, a lot. It was more of a satire of human society and how it compares to that of a bug, where you are just one out of billions.
The whole system makes me feel insignificant.
Excellent. You've made a real breakthrough.
I have?
Yes, Z. You are insignificant.
I am?
Personally, I find Ants to be the more interesting film. Bug's Life is good, but a little too vanilla. But that does not mean Ants is perfect. It absolutely isn't.
This stuff tastes like crap.
Really? Let me try some. Hey, it is crap.
The next movie from DreamWorks was The Prince of Egypt. As I said before, this film came out in December of '98 and was somewhat competing against Bug's Life, but it couldn't have been more different. It was traditionally animated and was about the biblical story of Moses. So, no bugs this time. Well, mostly. It did well in the box office and was a good movie in general. The road to El Dorado was after that, and it failed hard. Like, they lost some serious money on that one. Then there was Chicken Run. That was another great movie, but DreamWorks did not make it. They were the distributors, and credit for the production goes to Aardman Animations. But in 2001, DreamWorks finally released a movie that would make them stand out from the crowd.
This is gonna be fun. We can stay up late, swapping manly stories, and in the morning, I'm making waffles. Oh!
Ah, Shrek, the flagship of DreamWorks Animation. This movie was a huge hit and was a shock to both Disney and Pixar. They finally found some legit competition that could not only fight, but win.
And the Oscar goes to Shrek, Aaron Warner.
This is the first Academy Award nomination and the first Oscar for producer Aaron Warner. Shrek employed state-of-the-art CGI animation. Producer Jeffrey Katzenberg said that it will be a benchmark for about a day or two.
2001 was the first year for the Best Animated Movie category at the Oscars, and Shrek beat out Monsters, Inc. Oh, and Jimmy Neutron too, which we all know deep down inside is the greatest movie ever made.
The pizza is aggressive.
Shrek was a massive middle finger to Disney. Its entire premise and story was basically a juxtaposition to them, to mock and satirize their traditional fantasy stories and how predictable they can be. I mean, Shrek literally takes a shot at Disney as soon as the movie begins.
She waited in the Dragon's Keep, in the highest room of the tallest tower, for her true love and true love's first kiss. Like that's ever gonna happen.
And to Shrek's credit, it kind of works. For a lot of people, it was fun to take this meta perspective on the movies of old and make fun of them. Now, production for this movie was actually looked down upon by the employees of DreamWorks. It was production hell, and a lot of artists were condemned to work on this movie if they weren't performing well. Personally, I believe that Katzenberg opened up the ninth circle of hell and made a blood pact with the devil, that he summoned all of his hate for Disney, and it manifested itself into a movie called Shrek. So DreamWorks finally found something that made it unique. So what did they do with it? Nothing. This is where the problem begins. While Pixar is known for its consistent, strong stories and quality animation, DreamWorks is just really known for being the animation studio that isn't Pixar or Disney. And it has been like that ever since. So after a long history lesson, we finally get to the meat of the video. What's ruining DreamWorks? That's the question, and here's my answer. They have no unique identity. As I said before, they are more known for being the studio that isn't Disney or Pixar. The studio that makes the occasional good movie every so often, but mostly creates average or below average stuff. Why is that? Why couldn't DreamWorks find themselves after Shrek? I have a few theories about this. Number one, they were cursed from the very start. DreamWorks is a studio that was created out of revenge. Shrek is a movie that was created out of revenge. So if it succeeds, where do you take it? How does it reflect your brand as a studio? What does your audience make of it? I mean, I know the Shrek franchise went on to make billions of dollars, but to most people, it's laughable. Kids want a Lightning McQueen or Elsa toy, not Shrek. And the internet mocks him all the time. I keep talking about Pixar, but they are such a good example of how a studio makes a name for itself. Besides Cars 2, Pixar has consistently made great movies. Some are much better than others, but they are all competently made and appreciated. When I watch a Pixar film, I know what I'm most likely getting, and it has been that way ever since Toy Story. Except for Cars 2. That movie sucked. Disney Animation revitalized itself in 2010 with Tangled, and has been releasing their own brand of movies ever since. They have embraced their traditional roots, but put a fresh spin on it. Frozen, Tangled, Moana. Kids get to see a new wave of princesses, but they aren't old school generic. Also, the studio has fun with non-princess films, which keeps things new and unique. For DreamWorks, they just don't know what they want. At one moment, they will make an incredible movie that is fun, beautiful, and sincere. But then their next movie is something stupid and looks like it was made by a completely different studio. Kung Fu Panda and How to Train Your Dragon are my two favorite franchises from DreamWorks. They are all well made and lots of fun. Now, they have a dry sense of humor and the occasional lowbrow joke, but it's forgivable.
My tenders.
These are the movies that the studio should run with and try to replicate in new ways, but they rarely do. Instead, we get Turbo and Home. Movies that have been coldly calculated for financial success and how they perform with testing groups. There are a few good standalone films in their library, but most of their content is average, and that isn't good enough. If they want to build brand loyalty and respect, they need to do better than this.
Diapers are all about power dynamics. I poop, they wipe, bam! I'm the boss.
DreamWorks, the boss baby.
You stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could, and before you even knew what you had, you patented it and packaged it and slapped it on a plastic lunchbox, and now you're selling it. You want to sell it.
And number 2, financial meddling. Out of all of the topics I have researched, none of them are more littered with numbers than DreamWorks. I don't understand why. When I looked up Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, I could barely find any statistics, but DreamWorks is loaded with them. Money this, money that, money, money, money. Which, you know, makes sense when you are a company. Money is what makes the world go round and keeps a studio in business. Without it, what's the point? But for DreamWorks, I feel that they primarily focus on money. More often than not, Pixar creates a movie because there is a story to be told. Ratatouille and Up, for example, were not going to be big franchises. I have never seen a kid with a rat toy or a plushie of Carl, but that was okay with Pixar. They had a story to tell, and that was good enough of a reason for them. Disney Animation has been able to have their cake and eat it so far with Frozen and their other films. But for DreamWorks, they tend to make movies that will give them the biggest bang for their buck. The next movie is about a snail, but he's like the car from the Pixar movie. Just make it work. And the artists will try their best. They do what they can with the direction they are given, but sometimes it just doesn't work. DreamWorks suffers from a lack of direction and leadership. Pixar and Disney Animation have John Lasseter, a guy who really knows what he's doing. He has an excellent track record of movies that are both financial and critical hits, and now the studio has a reputation because of it. For DreamWorks, they don't really have a John Lasseter. Yeah, there's Katzenberg, but he really hasn't done that great of a job in the long run. The last few years have not been great for the company, and Katzenberg told the press what they had to do to change things. He basically said, "We need to make cheaper movies, more sequels, and better marketing." And with that, they fired 500 employees in 2015 and began to shut down other parts of the company. Instead of focusing on making good movies, DreamWorks scrambles to make successful movies, ones that can create spin-offs and franchises. These are not bad goals, but they keep missing the point. People do not know what to expect with DreamWorks, and that, in the long run, is not good for a studio's reputation. Overall, DreamWorks is a studio of wasted potential. They obviously have artists and animators who are incredibly talented, and competent writers who know how to tell a good story. They have made movies before that surpass both Disney and Pixar, but more often than not, they create average to below average films, and that has been the norm for them. The only real identity DreamWorks has is one of mediocrity, a studio that is known for its pop culture references, fart jokes, and dance parties at the end of the films. And with the arrival and growth of newer studios, there is a chance that DreamWorks might fade into obscurity. In 2016, DreamWorks was sold to NBC Universal for $3.8 billion. Funny enough, the guy who is in charge of it now is the same guy who founded Illumination, the studio responsible for Minions and Secret Life of Pets. I don't know how I feel about this. Illumination is practically a carbon copy of DreamWorks. They just know how to make more money from their films. Is that the angle here? Is that why they put this guy in charge of DreamWorks? I was really hoping that DreamWorks could revitalize itself the same way Disney did in 2010. I was hoping that it could find itself like Pixar has. But it seems to me that we won't be seeing that kind of future. Shrek 5 was recently announced and is slated for a 2019 release. This isn't too surprising since Shrek movies make so much money and Universal wants a return on investment. Fortunately though, they are still making How to Train Your Dragon 3, but that is the only movie I'm looking forward to. Everything else looks meh. I ultimately feel bad for DreamWorks. This was a studio that was founded out of revenge and hate and was never really able to find itself. Instead, it has been floating around aimlessly for almost 2 decades. They have their occasional gems, but they are few and far between. And with this new leadership, I doubt they will find the change they desperately need. But who's to say? They are capable of creating great movies, and maybe they can turn things around in the years to come.